Weijia, another big story unfolding in Washington, D.C. continues to be the questions that the president is facing about whether he will stay in the race. And our colleague Tony DeCopel spoke to the Biden-Harris campaign's principal deputy campaign manager, Quentin Folks, earlier on CBS Mornings. Here's what he had to say when asked if there was any truth that Biden could leave the race in a matter of days. Let's listen.
It's not true at all. Joe Biden has been very clear. He is running for president of the United States, and our campaign is continuing to implement a strategy to win with him at the top of the ticket. And I think all the calls for the anxiety is coming from a place of wanting to defeat Donald Trump.
Is the public posture the same as the private one? What are you hearing from sources?
Well, we should also point out that the Biden-Harris campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, who is really running the entire operation, also appeared in an interview this morning to say exactly the same thing, that despite these reports that continue to surface that the president is considering leaving the race, she says he's not going anywhere, and added that she expects he'll be back on the campaign trail as early as next week, even though right now he is still recovering from COVID. What we do know is that the president has become more receptive to hearing the case against him. But, Lindsay, that is very, very different from saying that he has decided or is close to a decision about withdrawing his nomination. And so even though we know that prominent, high-profile Democrats, including former President Barack Obama, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the current leadership as well, including Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. These are all conversations that are being had about the president's viability, about what their various caucuses are talking about and their concerns, and those are being presented to Biden. But we need to tread carefully because there is only one person who can make that decision, and that's Joe Biden, despite how much pressure he faces. And so even though he might be thinking about this and talking with those who are close to him, that does not mean it changes what he has been saying since the debate, which is, very defiantly, I am not going anywhere.
Weijia, how crucial will the next few days be for the campaign?
I think we've been saying every day is crucial since the debate, and I think that's true because the president has to continue making the case to the American public that he is up for it, that he has the stamina, the energy, and the mental fitness to take on Trump, which is exactly why this COVID diagnosis could not come at a worse time, because he was in the middle of presenting that case on the campaign trail with grueling stops in various states, and now he has been sidelined. And so, it really determines what we see in the next few days. But as you mentioned, what is happening behind the scenes is really important as well. And just to what extent is the president actually considering leaving? We do know that two senior House Democrats told our colleague Major Garrett that they believe Biden could exit within days. But again, until we know, we don't know anything, unfortunately. It's his decision alone to make.
Do we have an update on how the president's doing since he caught COVID?
The last update we got was from his doctor yesterday that said he was experiencing mild symptoms, but that he was still doing the work of the American people, and he is in isolation in Delaware. We know right now the CDC's guideline is for that to be about 5 days, or I should say 5 days. And so he is right in the middle of quarantining, but his doctor says that he is recovering well and taking Paxlovid, which, of course, is used to treat COVID.
Weijia Jiang, thank you.
Sure.